Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. I'm coming to you from the Salt Lake City, Utah terminal. So I had a guy, Tony Z, ask me a laundry list of questions. I wrote them down. It's like a lot. About Prime, and so I thought, well, maybe other people have those kinds of questions, so I'll just try to answer them as best I can. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things real quick, almost like follow-ups on stuff. So a while back I did a video about US Express, and they're the parent company of Variant. You see a lot of Variant trucks out there hauling US Express trailers. And they had their earnings call recently, and it was not good. It was not good. And the thing is, right, like, and I share this because I want people to understand the differences, or the difference between working at a company that's good for you and working at a good company. So for example, you could be working at a company that's very poorly run, that doesn't have its finances in order, that doesn't have enough insurance to cover, really bad events happening, and you still really like it. They're fair to you, they pay you well, you like the equipment, you like where you drive, you like your schedule, and so, but both of those things are important, right? You don't want to work for a company that's really well run if you hate it. And some companies that are really well run, part of the reason they're considered really well run is that they really wring out their employees. But shareholders don't care about employees. They only care about numbers. And that's not a company that you might want to work for, but it might be a company you want to own stock in. Conversely, there are companies that maybe aren't run well and are in perilous financial situations, but that treat their employees well, and their employees love them. I'm not sure USX fits into either category, because they're definitely not well run, and I kind of did a show on that a while back. But the other thing that's been going on is they've admitted in their first quarter earnings call that they're having huge turnover at Variant, and that it got better in April, but it's still slowing them down. So they keep buying trucks for Variant, but they're having trouble retaining people. And the reason, everybody has an individual reason why they leave a company. But here's the thing, USX, the parent company, they had retention problems, and they had higher than normal turnover in their USX legacy divisions back before they even started Variant. I'm not sure why anybody, even though Variant was a different model, maybe they paid more, they hired experienced drivers, they supposedly had this killer app for making things so much better for drivers. Why would you necessarily think that a company that had the history of not being able to take care of drivers and not being able to keep people in the stable, so to speak, would all of a sudden be able to do that and meet driver needs with a subsidiary? Conversely, if the company was like, said, oh, well, we're going to spin this off, it's going to be so much different, drivers are going to be so much happier. If you're working at USX, wouldn't you be like, that's like saying that somebody treated their first wife like crap, but the second wife is going to be treated like a queen, right? That just doesn't figure, because it's the same people running it. It's the same husband. And so, or wife, you know what I'm saying. You get the analogy. So sure enough, they do an earnings call. Their numbers are horrible, right? They keep getting downgraded. So here's the question. If you like that company, should you though be concerned? Should you just ride it out to see what happens? Should you maybe, buy their stock in hopes that it shoots up eventually, that they eventually get their act together? I mean, and by the way, the track record, you know, like Bill Parcells used to say, you are what your record says you are. And, you know, I don't think that companies, and by the way, this company is owned by a lot of insiders. Even though it's a publicly traded, insiders, family members control a lot of it. They're not going to relinquish control to some outside CEO, COO, CFO. You know, they're not going to relinquish control to people that maybe are really good at running trucking companies. And, you know, the thing is that the marketplace is competitive for drivers. And then when you have a company that's, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but they lost money last quarter. Like their OR is over 100. For every dollar they earned, you know, they spent maybe like $1.02 to earn it. Okay, this is not healthy, and this is a pattern. So anyway, that's my little update and rant. I'm not going to go into all the numbers. They're still carrying enormous loads of debt. They're, you know, they said, oh, well, we have this much cash on hand, but the cash on hand counts credit lines that they can draw down. I mean, if I said to you, how much cash you got, and you're like, well, I only got $11.71 in my bank account, but I have a $5,000 limit on my Visa card. So therefore, I really actually have $5,011.73 to my name. Well, nobody else thinks like that. Now, access to capital is important for companies, but these guys are carrying a ton of debt. Debt, you know, especially with rising interest rates, you're like, well, if they borrowed money, they can't raise the interest rates. Well, that's not exactly how a lot of commercial loans work. Okay, commercial loans oftentimes are pegged to the prime interest rate. And so when the Fed raises interest rates, and by the way, the Fed raises the Fed funds rate, and that's how much they charge to banks to borrow money from the Fed, then the banks pass it on, and that's the prime rate. And there's a bunch of other rates that are around, like margin rate, etc. But what I'm saying is, in a rising interest rate environment, a company that's carrying a lot of debt and is including, you know, the ability to draw down on credit lines, which are also increasing in interest, it just, I don't know. I mean, they're big, but they're not too big to fail. I kind of feel like, you know, they might be like a candidate for some private equity company to come in. But anyway, I just share that with you. So let's talk about this list. So I'm just going to go through these questions that Tony Z, and he said trucks, so I guess he was asking you, what kind of trucks do we have? We have big, strong, beautiful trucks, Tony, beautiful. And actually, we have Freightliner Cascadias in both a tiny version, like that's the, like, I don't know what you call it, the coffin sleeve, you know, the littler ones, and then they have the bigger ones like I have that they call condos. We also run Peterbilts, international LTs, and we do have some guys have Volvos. There are a few Volvos around, and like I think I've mentioned, my former trainee Paul was offered a brand new Volvo to lease that he declined because he decided to take a shorter lease on a Freightliner. And I was just noticing today, we have some KW day cabs that the intermodal guys are using here in Salt Lake. And, you know, I think right now, if I had to say, the vast majority of trucks, Freightliners, Peterbilts, international LTs, with a smattering of Volvos, and yeah. So anyway, so that's the truck. Do we have any company drivers? Yeah, actually we have quite a few company drivers. The percentage of the total workforce that's company drivers, I don't know, but we have company drivers in every division, and that answers another question. So what are the divisions at Prime? And there are 4 divisions at Prime. Reefer, which is probably the largest, flatbed, tanker, and intermodal. The intermodal jobs are all based on terminals, terminals in certain cities. So cities with big rail hubs, and ironically, there's an intermodal train coming by me right now. We'll see if there's any prime intermodals on it, but I'm sure there are. Here, I'll show you the train. Because everybody that knows me knows I like trains anyway. So we'll see. This these are 53-foot boxes on this train. So at least the lead ones. Oh, there's some ocean containers too. I can see them. Anyway, we'll see if there's any prime intermodal on there. I'll point them out to you. Yeah, so that's the 4 divisions. Basically, everything's over the road except for the intermodal guys, and they have a different pay scheme. And those are the guys, like I was saying, driving those day cabs. So and also they do hire like outside contractors, like people that aren't, they contract with Prime, but they're like a one-off guy that has maybe his own authority. They're doing intermodal containers too. Leasing. I'm leasing my truck. I don't yet own it. I have the option to buy it if I want to. And then there was a question, do they lease new trucks or used trucks? So the answer is yes. When a 3-year lease is initiated, the truck that's put in that lease is a new truck. However, if somebody walks away from that lease, because that's how Prime has their leases set up, you could turn the truck in, and basically, as long as you were paid up to date and everything, it's just a walkaway lease. They release those trucks, but here's what they don't do. They only lease trucks for 3 years, even if there's a second, or I guess maybe even a third lessee. So for example, I've talked about this before, but the truck I got, when I got it, it had like, I think it had 122,000 miles on it. But when I leased it, so it's used. When I leased it though, I only am leasing it for 100 weeks. So a little bit less, 4 weeks less than 2 years. I will say this, the truck was in great shape. It was super, super clean. They detail them. It looked brand new, okay? Even though I know it had been previously leased. Now, some people might not want to lease a used truck, even though they're, like I said, they're in very good condition. But one of the advantages, and I've talked about this in the past too, one of the advantages was that I could complete a lease quicker and get a lease completion bonus if I go all the way through the lease. The other reason was that there was money in the lease that I was able to use for when I was leasing. The tire fund, for example, carried over from the previous lessee. So I think at the time I had maybe like, I'd have to go back and look, but I think I had like, maybe like, I don't know if it was like 1,900 or maybe it was even more than that. But in any event, this truck, in the basically 1 year I've had it, I've put all new rubber on the entire truck. Brand new, fully brand new tires. Here's a couple of Primes going by. If you can see these, that's a UPS, there's a Prime. That's the old style, right? That's the trailer. We've now transitioned to boxes, but I'm sure this was put on this train right here, I'm guessing. Anyway, so I avail myself of some of the benefits that the previous lessee had created. So it's kind of doing a used one. A lot of people want to finish up a lease, and then maybe they want to buy a truck, so they take a shorter lease. Some guys, like my friend Will, Freight Skater, check his channel out, he did one 3-year lease, then he leased another truck. And that's just what he wants to do. But there are options for everybody, and you could be a company driver for a while and then lease. It's up to you. And let me say this about the divisions real quick. When I worked at Knight Transportation, Knight has several divisions, and most people were either going dry van or reefer when they came to Knight, like all my classmates in CDL school. But the way Knight worked it, which is different than Prime, is if you were in dry division and you wanted to go to reefer, at least back then, you actually had to quit your job in dry division and apply to reefer division. Now, I'm guessing that if you had a good record in dry division, they would let you move, they would hire you in reefer. But you actually had to quit one job and start another. So at Prime, if I just decided, okay, I want to do flatbed, I could just tell them, and they, you know, I mean, within reason, they would let me do flatbed. I could, you know, somebody could be flatbed, do tanker, flatbed, do reefer. Okay, so that's one advantage that I see at Prime. If you get into something and then you're like, you know what, you know, it's not, it turns out I don't like flatbed for whatever reason. I've even met people who actually kind of got hurt on the job and were like, you know, climbing around those flatbed trailers is not for me. I'm going to go to reefer or whatever. So that's certainly one option. Another question was the governor. We're set at 65. Company trucks, I think, because you know, I'm pretty sure they are set at 62. I could be wrong, but I think they're set at 62. Questions about, you know, who insures the truck, who insures your family. So, for truck insurance, if you're a company driver, obviously the company's insuring the truck, and they offer health care plans, and I have zero details about those, and other, you know, probably other insurance for family members. But for me, I don't have outside medical. I have medical because I retired from the Navy, and other benefits. There is a package of benefits, and I talked about it when I did my video on leases. There is kind of a package of benefits, like the hemorrhoid coverage. You know, that's part of the lease. I also have other insurances that I want to own personally, so even if I left the company, I would still have them. There was a question about 401k. If you're a company driver, they offer 401k. If you're a lease driver and you want a 401k, you got to set it up through an entity. But there is such a thing as a single member, an individual 401k. And you know, if you have a lease, there are lots of investment opportunities for you to use your company to underwrite. He asked kind of a question about corporate form. I would, if I were to guess, you could be a sole proprietor and you would just do your all your profit and loss stuff on a Schedule C. A lot of people have LLCs, and again, that's just, if you're a single member LLC, that's just going to be like you're a Schedule C, like you're a sole proprietor. You're going to be treated that way. Some people have LLCs that have more than one member, and some people have, you could have an S Corp. Some people have, like me, LLC is treated like an S Corp. So there are lots of options, and really you should get professional assistance with that, like a good accountant, CPA. Question about who covers wear and tear. Well, like any lease, right? If you're talking about lease, so if you own the truck, you cover the wear and tear. If you lease the truck, you still cover the wear and tear, right? And by the way, that is not unlike leasing anything else. I don't care what you lease. If you lease other than real property, because normal wear and tear is normally not a reason to keep somebody's security deposit in most states. But if you lease a vehicle, like a car, you're responsible for normal wear and tear, right? They don't pay for the oil to be changed, but the contract says you got to change the oil periodically. You can't like lease a car for 3 years and never change the oil. You can't lease a car for 3 years and never put tires on it and expect that they're not going to say, oh, well, you got to give us a little money to put some tires. And in the lease with Prime, it says how much tread the tires have to have. So yeah, I'm responsible for normal wear and tear, right? Because I'm putting normal wear and tear on the truck. I mean, think about it. If this truck was sitting in a lot and no one was leasing it, there's no normal wear and tear. I'm the guy putting it on. I'm the guy that's responsible. Now, Prime has very, very competitive and even probably better than competitive rates for a lot of repairs. The other thing too is that when I go into one of our shops, the first thing they try to do is see if something can be fixed on warranty. So like for instance, I had this laundry list of things that needed to be done the last time I had the truck in the shop in Salt Lake. But the guy that works there, Jorge, and there's a bunch of guys, but Jorge's the guy that initially looks at everything. You know, he's like, oh, I think I can get this on warranty. Let me see. I think I can get this on warranty. So like they're trying to get work done on your truck that you need, but have it covered by Freightliner or Peterbilt or International or whatever. So I feel like they do quality work for the most part, and you know they're easy to deal with. The shops at Prime are pretty dang good. They got, you know, sometimes they're a little short-handed, but I can tell you that they are better shops here. There are better shops here at Prime than there are at other big carriers, and I say that from personal experience. Average time out, and he said, you know, with a student / trainee, or you know, by yourself. And the answer to that is this: any lease operator, any lease owner, they kind of call their own shots when it comes to their schedule. So the answer is, how long do you have to stay out? Well, you have to stay out to make enough money to cover all your bills. Otherwise, at some point, Prime's going to be like, hey, you know, you've already missed like 4 truck payments, and you're like $1 gazillion in the hole, you know. And honestly, that's when people, I think, do turn their trucks in. They're just like, oh, I'm never going to get out of this hole. So the answer is, it's a business, right? I'm running a business. How long I stay out is up to me. As far as like with TNT trainees being on the truck, I mean, you try to work with them and things that they need, but at the end of the day, it is a job. And you know, like one time my fleet manager contacted me about putting a guy on my truck, and then he was like, yeah, I'll let you know in a couple days, because he's trying to figure out like childcare arrangements. And I was like, you know, I kind of made my face, and I was like, well, you know, maybe this isn't for him, because he's already at the TNT phase, which is to say he's already done PSD, so now he's getting ready to go into a fairly intensive training period, and he's got childcare problems. But beyond that, what's he going to do when he got out of TNT? Like, you got to get on the road, right? And you already got to have these things worked out really before you come to the company. And let me just say, this is just an aside. If you're coming to Prime, right, this is not the time to be starting something new, you know, like this is the time that you are going to be able to leave home and be unfettered, right? And, you know, you have a duty, in my mind, to explain how it's going to be as best you can to your spouse, to your children, to whoever you're, you know, if somebody's providing childcare for you, you know, other people have expectations or needs. You need to let them know that you're going to be unavailable for periods of time, and that to, you know, for you to come home, it might not be just a, you know, one-day evolution unless you want to get on a plane. It might take, you know, 4, 5, 6 days to get somebody home, depending on how far away the truck is. And, you know, they'll work on that, but, you know, at the end of the day, the trainer is trying to run a business. And so, you know, the amount of time I spend out is based on, like, when I have a trainee on the truck like I do now, my goal, you know, part of my goal is to just get them through training, because that's what they're trying to do, right? Like, they didn't come to Terry's truck to just ride around indefinitely. So that's part of it. Part of it is my needs. If I need to go home or they need to go home, we work it out. If I was solo, I might, it just depends. If I had something at home in 2 weeks, then I'd go home in 2 weeks. If I didn't, and I didn't have to be home for 6 weeks, and my wife was busy and she's like, yeah, just stay out until whatever, then I'll do that. And that's what I do like about leasing, is I have that latitude. I theoretically could go home every week. I think that would defeat the purpose of what I'm trying to do. But Tony Z also asked a question about could he run a Northeast regional, and the answer is yes. You could do that as a company driver or as a lease operator. In fact, because I went through Pittston when I came to orientation, they asked a question, hey, would you like to run the Northeast Regional? And I've said this before, there's no area in the country that I won't run. But, and I told my fleet manager, I'm like, no, I don't want a regional route. And that's always been my answer. I didn't want one at night. I've never wanted a regional route. That's just me. But, I'll run into the Northeast. And I told him that. I was like, dude, I live up this way. I don't have any problem running into Maine or Massachusetts or New Hampshire, Connecticut, whatever. I don't have any problem running into New York State. I've never had anybody ask me to take a load or try to get me to take a load into the 5 boroughs or out to Long Island. I've run in and out of northern New Jersey, sure. But, again, I don't make my living up there, and most of us don't. Even the guys that are running the Northeast region, I don't think, let's be candid, like New York State and New England, those other 6 states, it's a pretty big area. You can log a few miles up there. And then if it's also including maybe Pennsylvania, New Jersey, I don't even know exactly what Prime calls the Northeast, but I do know they have a Northeast Regional. And if you're, as everybody knows, if you're a lease operator, you can turn down any load. So, if you were up running the Northeast region, but somebody's like, oh, hey, this load's going to Staten Island, or this load's going to, somewhere out on Long Island, you would have the option of turning it down. I don't know, like I said, I have never once been offered a load to the 5 boroughs at any company I worked for. 5 boroughs or Long Island. Never had a load there. I don't even know that I've had a load that went into, say, Westchester County, which is right outside of New York. Because a lot of times you got to go where shippers and receivers are. And when you start talking about like really rarefied, like high cost places to live, you're not going to see a lot of distribution centers. And it's not like Amazon's just going to throw one up, because places that are super densely packed, they don't normally have 30-acre parcels opening up. So I just don't spend a lot of time worrying about a load in and out of New York or Long Island or whatever. So anyway, I think that's most of the list that he wanted. I hope that's helpful to him and to other people. And yeah, just be safe out there. By the way, update on my trainee. We're here at Salt Lake, and I've said this before. I think it's important that when you're training somebody that you spend time apart, right? It just makes everybody happy. Everybody needs some alone time. And so she's checked in at the in a bunk room. I'll stay in the truck tonight. And then we got a load to deliver in the morning, and then we're gonna probably hang out till around dinner time tomorrow night and get back on the road. So and then I got a little bit of home time, although I'm taking it in Iowa. So I'll drop her off at her home and run out to Iowa, hang out with my family for a little bit, do some fun things, and then help my son move, because he finished college and he's moving to another location in Iowa for a new job. And yeah, we'll just go from there. So be safe. I'll be back. I'll be back this week definitely with some other stuff that I've been working on. So talk to you soon. Bye.